Welcome to the class, my dear students. Last class we studied how to write definition for the member functions. So we can write definition for the member function in two ways. First one is inside the class, that is inside the class member function definition. Second one is outside the class member function definition. So last class we discussed with examples how to define a member function inside the class, right? So today second way, that is outside the class member function definition. As we discussed in the last class, what is the mean by member function definition? We can say that after declaration of class means in the class we are going to declare a data member as well as member functions. Means in the class just we declared the name of the function and end with semicolon, means that is member function declaration. What is mean by definition of member function definition? Means suppose we are going to write code for the member function, means that is considered as definition of member function. Okay, so this member function definition is done in a two way. First one is inside the class member function definition. Second one is outside the class member function definition. So in the last class we discussed in detail what is mean by member function definition inside the class. So how we written code for the member function inside the class means after the declaration of member function, immediately without putting semicolon for that function, we are going to write code for the member function within the class only. This is called inside the class member function definition. Now the second one is outside the class member function definition. What it means? The name itself says outside the class member function definition means within the class we are going to just declare the name of the function, and after closing class with a semicolon, we are going to write code for those functions outside the class, means that is considered as member function definition outside the class. And this is done by considering a special operator, that is double colon, a special operator, it is called scope resolution operator. So whenever we want to write code for the member function outside the class, means we have to take help of this special operator called scope resolution operator. Within the class only, suppose we want to write code for those member functions, means that is inside the class member function definition. We discussed it in the last class. There is no need of any special operator to write code for the member function. It is same as we write code for the functions, right? But we want write code for the member functions outside the class, means we have to use a special operator called scope resolution operator. Means this scope resolution operator tells particular function, means for which function we are going to write code, that function belongs to which class. Means suppose we want to write code for the definition for the member function outside the class, means first we have to write name of the class preceded with the scope resolution operator, and afterwards we are going to write name of the class. So its syntax is, means how to write the general form, or it is also called syntax for the general form for outside the class definition, means for outside the class member function definition, or else the syntax for outside the class member function definition is as follows. The syntax for is as follows. Return type specifier, class name, scope resolution operator, followed by name of member function, closing bracket. See here, what is the syntax? A return type specifier, return type specifier space class name, scope resolution operator, pair of colon, this is one pair of colon, this is another pair of colon. So this pair of colon makes which operator? Scope resolution operator, followed by name of member function. This is a function, that's why open bracket, close bracket. And next, what is the code? What we want to write code for that member function must be placed within the pair of flower bracket. What we are going to write here code, that is nothing but body of the member function. Body of the member function. See here, I am going to explain the syntax. This return type specifier is nothing but we have to write data type. It may be int, float, char, void, anything. What this return type specifier represents means, after we are going to write code here, which value is going to be returned by this function, whether it is int or float or char, that is going to be identified by this return type specifier. Means this return type specifier means we have to write their void, int, float, char. Means this return type specifier represents what value is going to be returned by this function with the help of return statement, right? Means we have to write here data type. Which data type? Which value is going to be returned by this member function? That data type must be right here. Suppose this, let us see any one function, you consider any one function that is not going to return any value, means then a return type specifier must be void, right? Like that, if that function is going to return any value with the help of return statement, means we have to write that value data type. Suppose that function is not going to return anything, means then a return type specifier must be void, right? Next we have to write, after writing return type specifier, you take on space and afterwards you write the name of the class. Name of the class means that declared member function belongs to which class, in which class you return that member function. Means we are writing code for the member function. That member function must be belongs to one class. That class name must be written here. And afterwards scope resolution operator, that is pair of colon. Afterwards name of the member function. Name of the member function. After the name of the member function, here there is no semicolon. If we return there semicolon, means that represents end of the member function. That's why don't take any semicolon there. Next, open flower bracket, closed flower bracket. Here this dot 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 line indicates code belongs to this member function. That's why I written here body of the member function. Body of the member function. Let us consider an example, that is the member function in the date class can be defined outside the class as shown below. As shown below. Let us see one example. Now our aim is to member function definition outside the class. Means our aim is to write code to the member function outside the class, and this is possible using this syntax. Now let us see one example. So what he says, the member function in the date class can be, the member function in the date class can be defined outside the class as described below. Means he says consider a date class and consider that a date class related data members as well as member functions, and close the class and write the code for those member functions outside the class, right? This is today's topic. We have to write code for the member functions outside the class. This is possible with the help of what we written now, that syntax. That is, this is possible with the help of a special operator called scope resolution operator. Let us see class example 1, right? This is example 1. Class name is date, right? When a date is the class, means what will be the data member? Private data member int day comma m, means day comma month comma year. I am taking y, no problem. You can in full form date month year, or else dmy, no problem. Next functions public. So now we have to consider here within the class only functions, data members, that is void input function semicolon void display function semicolon, close the class with the semicolon. This indicate what? End of class declaration. Class declaration, right? Because semicolon. This is called end of class declaration. These are what? Declaration of member function. Declaration of member functions. Because code is not there for these functions, that's why this is just declaration of member functions. Now we have to write code for these functions. That is nothing but definition of member function. Writing code to the member function is called definition of member function, and this definition of member function is possible in two ways. One is inside the class, means within the closing of this class we have to write code for here only, what we discussed in the last class. Now we have to write code for these member functions outside the class. This is today's topic, right? So outside the class, now we have to write code for this input function as well as code for this output function, display function outside the class. That is, now class is closed. Now we have to write code for these two functions outside the class. As I said already, this is possible using a special operator called scope resolution operator, right? Now the class is closed. Consider each function one by one. That is return type specifier, right? So already function return type specifier is void. That's why take void only. Void. Just to recall the syntax, return type specifier, class name, scope resolution operator, name of the member function. So return type specifier, void is there, void. Class name means date, scope resolution operator, function name means input function, and here we are going to write code for this function, therefore don't put a semicolon. Here semicolon is there for input function, means this is just declaration. Whenever we are going to write code for member function, means we are not put semicolon here, because we are writing code of this function, so that must be written within the pair of flower bracket. So what we have to input here? Date class is there, means we have to accept day, month and year. That's why put a cout statement, cout, enter the date, enter the date, cin. So user is going to enter a day, month and year, that those are going to be stored in, take these variable only, what data members we are taken here, those thing must be right there. That is, day is going to be stored in a D, month is going to be stored in M, year is going to be stored in Y. That's why write cin day, M year, right? Now close the flower bracket. This indicates what? Definition for member function outside the class, right? So this represents what? Definition for member function outside the class. Here two member functions are there. Just we completed one function, that is input function. Now we return code for input function using a special operator called scope resolution operator. Why we have to write that scope resolution operator means this scope resolution operator identifies this member function belongs to this class, right? That scope, why we have to use that scope resolution operator means that scope resolution operator identifies that, means what member function we are going to write in front of that member function, in front of that scope resolution operator, means this input function belongs to this class. This input function belongs to this class. So this is what, how to write code for member function outside the class. That is definition of member function outside the class. Here one more function is there. So write code for this function also. Therefore void display function is there, but according to syntax, first return types is where, afterwards name of the class. Name of the class means date, scope resolution operator. Name of the function means display function, right? Display function. Now open flower bracket. Now what code we have to write? What we have to display with the help of display function? We have to display the accepted date, right? We have to display the accepted date. So that's why, how we have to write? We have to write like this: cout entered date is cout where day is stored in D, right? D M year. Closing of class. So here this indicates what? Definition for member function outside the class. This is what? Definition for member function outside the class. So in this way it is possible to write code for the declared member function outside the class. I am telling one more time. So what happened? We are not going to write this scope resolution operator. Why we have to write their scope resolution operator? Suppose we are not going to write a scope resolution operator means, while defining member function outside the class means, compiler is going to treat that function as a normal function. Means that function is just declared in the program. It is not going to consider that function belongs to this particular class, right? So means this scope resolution operator tells particular function means what function we are going to write in front of scope resolution operator, that member function belongs to this class. ಹೌದಾ? ಈ ಸ್ಕೋಪ್ ರೆಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಪರೇಟರ್ ಮುಂದೆ ನಾವು ಯಾವ ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ನ ಬರಿತೀವಿ, ಆ ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಈ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು, ಈ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ಗೆ ಬಿಲಾಂಗ್ ಆಗಿರೋದು ಅಂತ ಆ ಸ್ಕೋಪ್ ರೆಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಪರೇಟರ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆದ್ದರಿಂದ ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ಗೆ ಕೋಡ್ನ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಬರಿತೀವಿ, ಆವಾಗ ತಪ್ಪದೆ ಸ್ಕೋಪ್ ರೆಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಪರೇಟರ್ನ ಬರೀಲೇಬೇಕು. ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ವೆನೆವರ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಡಿಫೈನ್ code for the member function outside the class, at that time we have to use this scope resolution operator. This is very very important. For 1 mark we are going to get such questions in the examination. What is the significance of scope resolution operator, or else what is the use of writing scope resolution operator while defining member function outside the class? Answer is, the scope resolution operator identifies that particular member function which is going to be written after the scope resolution operator, that function belongs to the class which is mentioned before the scope resolution operator. Right? Scope resolution ಮುಂದ್ಗಡೆ ಬರೆದಿರೋ ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಸ್ಕೋಪ್ ರೆಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಪರೇಟರ್ಗಿನ ಮುಂಚೆ ಬರೆದಿರೋ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು ಅಂತ ಈ ಸ್ಕೋಪ್ ರೆಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಪರೇಟರ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ವೇ ಟು ರೈಟ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಔಟ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್. ಸೊ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ನೋಡೋಣ ನಾವು. ಲೆಟ್ ಅಸ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಅನದರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್. Second example, consider the class rectangle and consider the class rectangle related data member functions in the class, and afterwards define member functions of rectangle outside the class. So last class alli ನಾವು ಈ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಗೆ ಇದೇ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ನ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ಗೆ ಕೋಡ್ನ ವಿತಿನ್ ದ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಹೌದಾ? ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಡಿಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್, we are able to create a class called a rectangle. In the rectangle only, in the class rectangle only, we defined code for the member function. Right? We written code for the member function. Now today we are going to write code for the member functions belongs to rectangle outside the class. So that's why first just declare a class called a rectangle like this. Class rectangle, class rectangle, open flower bracket, private. So rectangle class means what will be the data member? Float, length, comma breadth, comma area. So these are the data members. Now declare member functions in public. void input function, float calculate function, void one more function, that is display function. Now close the class. This is what? Declaration of class. Declaration of class, right? So what are these three? These three are nothing but member functions of the class rectangle. What are these three? Member function of class rectangle. Now our aim is to write code for these functions outside the class. Simple thing. Now we have to write code for these three member functions outside the class. Let us consider one by one with the help of what we taken in the early that syntax. That is, recall the syntax: return type specifier space class name scope resolution operator name of the function, name of the member function, right? So three member functions are there. Now we have to write three member functions code outside the class. Here class is closed. Now I am going to write code for these three functions with the help of a operator called scope resolution operator. Let us see. First one, void. Class name means rectangle. Scope resolution operator. Class name is over. Now the name of the function is input function. Right? Input function, open flower bracket. So what we have to input? Our aim is to find area of rectangle, right? So area of rectangle is equal to length into breadth. So we need L and length and breadth, and those are going to be stored in these two variable. So that's why cout enter length comma breadth, enter length comma breadth. They are going to be stored in in length breadth. Those two variable only we have to take, right? And don't do such mistakes. Here you are taking full form length and breadth. Here you have to take those two variable only. I think all of you know. Don't take here short form L and B. You are getting error, right, in the first year. Now what this line tells? This input function belongs to this rectangle class, and this is identified by compiler with the help of a operator called scope resolution operator, right? This scope resolution operator tells this function belongs to this class. Now first function definition is over, right? Definition means writing code to the member function is called member function definition. Now the second one is calculate function. Take data type float, name of the class rectangle, scope resolution operator, name of the function calculate, calc function. Now what is the code? Why this variable area is taken means, in this variable area of rectangle is stored, that is formula. Write the formula. Area is equal to length into breadth, semicolon, close the bracket. Now one more function is left, that is the display function. Write the display function. Void display, void, don't write directly display, because syntax after return type specifier we have to write name of the class, that is rectangle, void rectangle, scope resolution operator, function name display function, right? Put open floor bracket and write the code. So what we have to write here, Cout area of rectangle is Cout area, result is stored in area, right? Write down area, semicolon, close the bracket, Now what happens when cursor comes here? This statement is printing area of rectangle is area. Where this area is there? It comes here. What is stored in this area? Length into breadth, right? Means this value must come here. Means this function sends value to here. This function is, this calculate function is sending value to here. That's why when this function is sending, means data type must be float, right? Data type must be float. So this is what, how to define member functions, outside the class. So in this way it is possible to define member functions in two ways. First one is inside the class member function definition. Second one is outside the class member function definitions. So just to go through these examples. In the next class we are going to discuss a very important topic, that is objects. So just now what we learned regarding objects? Objects are the class variables. Just we know objects are the class variables, right? So in the next class we are going to discuss in detail what is an object, what is the syntax or what is the general form of declaration of object, how to declare objects in program. That thing means regarding objects we are going to discuss in the next class. Thank you.